cracking the code of unspoken emotion. If you have ever been in a situation where your intuition tells you a woman is deeply into you, yet her outward behavior remains cold, distant, or even confusingly neutral, you aren't imagining things. This disconnect is one of the most common hurdles in modern dating, and it often leads men to walk away from incredible connections simply because they misread the signals. What you are witnessing isn't a lack of interest, it is a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism. When a woman starts to feel a genuine emotional pull toward a man, it can be terrifying. For many, that surge of attraction feels like a loss of control or a high stakes gamble where her heart is the prize. Instead of leaning in with obvious affection, she might create a smokescreen of indifference to protect herself from the potential of rejection or being too invested before she knows you are a safe harbor. Understanding this dynamic requires you to look past the surface and stop judging a woman's feelings solely by her overt declarations. In the world of high stakes attraction, the most powerful emotions are often the ones fighting the hardest to stay hidden. You have to realize that for a woman, being found out before she is ready can feel like a position of total weakness. This is why she might orbit your life, stay in your periphery, and keep the conversation going, yet never give you that clear green light moment you're looking for. She is waiting for you to demonstrate the emotional intelligence to see through the mask. By learning to decode these silent layers, you stop playing the guessing game and start seeing the truth of how she actually feels, even when she isn't ready to say a word. This isn't just about playing hard to get, it's about the raw human fear of vulnerability. When a woman cares, she is constantly monitoring the emotional temperature of the room. She is looking at how you react to her silence, how you handle her distance, and whether you are consistent enough to be trusted with her true feelings. If you only look at her quiet behavior and assume she's bored, you miss the subtle fire burning underneath. We are going to break down exactly why this happens and how you can spot the tiny psychological cracks in her armor. Once you know what to look for, you will never look at mixed signals the same way again. You'll see them for what they really are, a silent invitation for you to step up and lead the connection forward. The guarded heart. Why love looks like indifference. When a woman begins to feel a deep, soul stirring attraction to a man, her first instinct isn't always to show it. In fact, for many women, the primary instinct is to hide it. Once you know what to look for, you will never look at mixed signals the same way again. You'll see them for what they really are, a silent invitation for you to step up and lead the connection forward. The guarded heart. Why love looks like indifference. When a woman begins to feel a deep, soul stirring attraction to a man, her first instinct isn't always to show it. In fact, for many women, the primary instinct is to hide it. This is because when feelings feel risky, love doesn't look like love. It looks like a strategic retreat. You might be scanning her behavior for obvious signs of affection, like warm physical touch or clear verbal confessions. But when the stakes are high, she will do the exact opposite. She pulls back just enough to create a safety net for her ego, yet she never fully disappears. She remains in your orbit, watching and waiting, while masking her heart with a layer of neutrality or even coldness. This happens because she is caught in a psychological tug of war where desire and fear are pulling with equal strength. She wants the closeness, but she is terrified of the potential rejection, the loss of her emotional control, or the realization that she might be more invested than you are. To protect herself from that vulnerability, she disguises her attraction as teasing, independence, or casual distance. You have to understand that some women don't hide their feelings because those feelings are absent. They hide them specifically because they matter too much to lose. This sideways love is a defense mechanism designed to keep her from feeling exposed. From the outside, you might think, if she liked me, it would be obvious. But that is a dangerous misconception. For a woman who values her emotional stability, showing her hand too early feels like giving away all her power. Instead of leaning in, she creates a controlled environment where she can observe you without being found out. She might act like she doesn't care about your weekend plans or pretend she isn't bothered when you mention other people. But underneath that mask of indifference, her heart is racing. She is essentially playing a game of emotional poker, holding her cards close to her chest until she is 100% certain that you are a safe place to land. If you misread this guardedness as a lack of interest, you risk walking away from a connection that is actually incredibly deep. The key is to realize that her distance isn't a sign of boredom. It's a sign that she is struggling to process the intensity of what she feels for you. The precision of memory, the silent tracker. While she might be successful at masking her outward emotions, her subconscious mind will always betray her through what we call emotional attention. One of the most powerful psychological tells in existence is the precision of a woman's memory. If a woman remembers the smallest, most insignificant details about your life, things you forgot you even shared, that is never an accident. Whether it's a random story about your first dog, a specific way you like your coffee, or a dream you mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago, her ability to recall these facts is a direct result of her emotional investment. Psychologically, the brain prioritizes and sharpens memory for information that feels meaningful. If you don't matter to her, your stories go in one ear and out the other. But if she is secretly into you, her brain is quietly and efficiently cataloging every piece of data you give her, building a mental map of who you truly are. The part that most men misread is the delivery of these memories. Because she is trying to keep her feelings hidden, she will rarely highlight the fact that she's been paying such close attention. Instead, she will bring these details up casually or even dismissively, as if the information just floated into her mind by chance. She might say something like, "Oh, didn't you mention you hated that place?" with a tone that suggests she barely remembers the conversation. Don't be fooled by the casual delivery. That precision is a hidden declaration of care. She is tracking you differently than she tracks anyone else because you have become a priority in her internal world. She may pretend to be uninterested, but her memory is working overtime because she is emotionally attuned to your frequency. A woman who doesn't care will genuinely forget the details of your life because they hold no weight for her. However, a woman who is falling for you will remember everything. She just works twice as hard to hide the fact that she does, so she doesn't feel exposed. When you notice her recalling your stresses, your quirks, and your past with surgical accuracy, you are looking at a heart that is already yours, even if her lips haven't admitted it yet. The push pull response, the vulnerability hangover. Have you ever experienced that jarring moment where everything seems to be going perfectly, only for the floor to drop out from under you? You spend an evening having a deep, intimate connection. The conversation is effortless, the eye contact lingers, and the chemistry is undeniable. But then, the next morning, she becomes a ghost. She takes hours to reply, her tone turns clinical, and she acts like the magic of the previous night never happened. Most men immediately panic, assuming they did something wrong or that her interest has suddenly evaporated. In reality, the opposite is happening. The closeness you shared was so intense that it triggered a vulnerability hangover. For a woman who is guarding her heart, emotional intimacy feels like stepping out onto a ledge without a harness. The connection she feels for you creates a massive emotional risk. Suddenly, you have the power to hurt her, and that realization sends her nervous system into overdrive. This sudden distance is a regulatory tactic, not a sign of boredom. It is her way of pulling back to a safe distance where she can regain her emotional balance and remind herself that she is still in control of her own feelings. Think of it like a biological cooling off period. Her brain is literally trying to turn down the volume on the attachment she feels because the intensity is overwhelming her comfort zone. If she disappears for a few days and then resurfaces with a random, casual text or a low stakes question, she isn't playing games. She was simply waiting for the emotional wave to settle so she could engage with you again without feeling so exposed. The timing is the biggest clue here. Indifference doesn't follow deep connection. If the silence happens right after a breakthrough in intimacy, it's a sign that she's stepping away from the heat of her own feelings, not away from you. Teasing as a shield, the paradoxical love letter. Teasing is one of the most misunderstood tools in the language of attraction because, on the surface, it looks like a lack of respect. However, when a woman targets your unique quirks with specific, playful jabs, she is actually using humor as a sophisticated psychological shield. To give you a direct compliment or to tell you how much she admires you would be a high exposure move. It would leave her feelings completely bare. By wrapping her attention in mockery, she gets to engage with you, focus on you, and create a private world of inside jokes while keeping the environment safe and light. It is her way of saying, I notice everything about you, without having to admit, I'm falling for you. This is why her teasing feels so personal. It is built on a foundation of intense observation that an indifferent person simply wouldn't bother with. To decode this, you have to stop listening to her words and start watching her body language. When she teases you, look at her eyes. You will often catch a softening of her gaze, a micro expression of warmth, or a fleeting glance to see exactly how you're reacting to her. She is checking to see if you're in on the joke, effectively testing the strength of the bond between you. If she didn't care, her jokes would be generic, superficial, or even bored. But because she is emotionally invested, her teasing becomes a paradoxical love letter. It's a message saturated with emotion that is written in a code designed to be denied if things get too serious. Each witty remark is a hidden declaration of how much mental space you occupy. She is using humor to bridge the gap between her desire to be close to you and her fear of letting you see just how much power you truly have over her heart. Mirroring and testing, the silent sync and the safety check. When a woman is emotionally invested in you, her body often begins to speak a language her lips are too afraid to utter. This manifests as subconscious synchronization, a powerful biological response where she begins to mirror your energy, your habits, and even the rhythm of your speech. If you lean back, she leans back. If you speak in a low, calm tone, her voice softens to match yours. This isn't a conscious performance. It's her brain wiring itself to connect with yours. It's a deep seated human instinct to build rapport with someone who matters. By aligning her physical and verbal frequency with yours, she is building an invisible bridge between your worlds. Most men overlook this because it's so subtle. But if you pay attention, you'll see she is orbiting your emotional space, tuning herself to your specific frequency. She's essentially saying, I am with you, without ever having to risk the vulnerability of saying it out loud. Alongside this mirroring comes a series of tests that many men mistake for drama or moodiness. In reality, these are subtle emotional experiments, tiny probes designed to map out your character. She might share a small, seemingly insignificant vulnerability or set a minor boundary just to see how you react. She isn't playing games. She is taking calculated risks to see if you are a safe person to be vulnerable with. Every time she shares a piece of herself and you handle it with care, or every time she sets a boundary and you respect it without ego, you pass a test. To her, a past test is a green light to move one step closer. She is looking for consistency, strength, and emotional safety. These tests are her way of asking, if I let my guard down, will you catch me or let me fall? When you understand that her testing is actually an expression of her desire to trust you, you realize that she's navigating toward you, even while she keeps her true feelings under lock and key. Public versus private contrast. The power of the split mask. One of the most undeniable indicators of hidden love is what I call the split mask. This is the striking difference between how a woman treats you in a crowded room versus how she treats you when you are completely alone. In public, around friends, colleagues, or family, she might act indifferent, aloof, or even slightly cold. She keeps her distance, avoids lingering eye contact, and speaks to you with a polite, measured neutrality. To the outside observer, it looks like she couldn't care less. But this public mask is a survival tactic. It's about social safety. For a woman who is guarding her heart, the idea of her feelings being found out by a group is terrifying. It feels like losing her leverage and exposing her softest parts to the world. By staying neutral in the crowd, she maintains her armor and keeps her secret safe. However, the moment the door closes and the audience disappears, the mask slips. This transition is impossible to fake because it is driven by her genuine emotional state. When you are alone, her tone suddenly softens, her gaze lingers just a second longer than it should, and she becomes remarkably more present and attentive. This contrast is the ultimate roadmap to her heart. A woman who truly doesn't care about you has no reason to change her behavior based on who is watching. She would be just as fine or polite in private as she is in public. But if she is hiding a deep attraction, the private moments are the only time she feels safe enough to let a few cracks show in her defense. If she guards her heart in the crowd, but reveals it in the quiet, unguarded moments between just the two of you, she is already much closer to you than she is willing to admit. Her public composure is her shield, but her private warmth is her true confession. The power of small sacrifices, love in the shadows. When you are looking for signs that a woman cares, you have to stop listening for a confession and start looking for the invisible grace of her actions. In the world of hidden attraction, the most profound declarations of love aren't shouted from the rooftops. They are whispered through small, quiet sacrifices that most men overlook entirely. She might rearrange her entire afternoon just to be available for a 10-minute phone call. Or she might remember a specific task you were dreading and find a subtle way to help you through it. These aren't grand cinematic gestures designed to get your attention. They are silent investments in your happiness. She avoids the big reveal because to her, an outright declaration feels like walking into a trap without a shield. Instead, she chooses to show her hand through service and selflessness, quietly ensuring that your life is easier, smoother, and more enjoyable simply because she is in it. The psychology here is simple. Action is the only safe outlet for a heart that is afraid to speak. If she tells you she loves you, she risks everything. But if she quietly picks up your favorite snack because she knew you had a long day, or if she prioritizes your comfort over her own plans without making a scene about it, she gets to express her devotion without the terrifying risk of exposure. This is love disguised as just being helpful. You have to pay attention to the pattern of her consistency. A woman who is indifferent will not bend her routine for you. She won't go out of her way to protect your feelings or anticipate your needs. But a woman who is secretly in love will do these things with an effortless grace, often downplaying her efforts or pretending they were no big deal if you happen to notice. She wants to be your support system without you realizing she's even doing it, building a foundation of care that she hopes you'll eventually feel. When you take a step back and combine all these elements, the surgical precision of her memory, the sudden distance after moments of connection, the mirroring of your energy, the public private contrast, and these quiet, consistent sacrifices, the picture becomes undeniably clear. You aren't dealing with a woman who is cold, confused, or disinterested. You are dealing with a woman who is terrified. Her mixed signals are actually the friction between her deep desire to be with you and her instinctual need to protect herself from being hurt. Love isn't always a loud, obvious explosion of emotion. More often than not, it is a quiet, persistent force that hides and whispers in the background. She is standing right in front of you, waiting for you to have the vision to read between the lines and the strength to lead her out of her fortress of silence. Once you recognize these invisible sacrifices for what they truly are, you realize she hasn't been hiding her feelings at all. She's been speaking them through her actions every single day.